位记者朋友，大家下午好，欢迎出席。
Good afternoon. Welcome to the press conference. No questions, please.
谢发言人，总台央视记者提问。据报道，七国集团在日本召开外长会，并发布了联合声明。
The G7 foreign ministers issued a communique after a meeting in Japan. They reaffirmed the importance of peace and stability across Taiwan Strait, expressed concerns over the situation in the East and South China Sea, and also on issues related to Xinjiang and Tibet. They also urged China to ensure transparent, predictable, and fair business environments. Do you have any comments? Regardless of China's solemn position and objective facts, the G7 foreign ministers meeting has grossly interfered in China's internal affairs and maliciously smeared and discredited China. The communique is full of arrogance, prejudice, and the ill intention of containing China. We deplore and reject this and have made a strong démarche to the host Japan. Taiwan is part of China's sacred territory. The One China principle is what underpins peace and stability across Taiwan Strait. To truly keep the Taiwan Strait peaceful, it is essential to unequivocally oppose and stop any Taiwan independence acts. The Hong Kong, Xinjiang, and Tibet affairs are China's internal affairs that no foreign forces should interfere under any pretext or in any way. The situation in the East China Sea and the South China Sea is generally stable. Relevant countries need to respect the efforts of regional countries to uphold peace and stability and stop sowing discord and creating camp confrontation. As the most vibrant market with the greatest potential, China is committed to providing a stable, fair, transparent, and predictable investment and business environment for foreign investors. Certain G7 members have been oblivious to the principles of market economy and fair competition, overstretched and abused the concept of national security, and used every means possible to suppress foreign companies. They are in no position to criticize China. As a responsible major country, China firmly acts on the UN Charter and the basic principles of international law and is committed to building a community with a shared future for mankind. We once again urge G7 to reflect on their own problems and discard the Cold War mentality and ideological prejudice. They should stop running counter to the prevailing trend of today's world, stop pointing fingers, stop grossly interfering in other countries' internal affairs, and stop deliberately creating antagonism and division in the international community. Next question, please.
Phoenix 谢谢凤凰卫视的提问。在采访中，我们知道那个苏丹政变之后，有中国孔子学院的院长。
TV, we noticed a student and a student from the Sudanese Confucius Institute was kept under the military. And has China done anything for the Chinese there?
First, I would like to say, on April 15th, conflicts erupted in Sudan. The security situation is quite severe. The Chinese Foreign Ministry has inactivated the emergency response mechanism. We have contacted Chinese institutions and citizens there and provided consular protection and assistance for Chinese personnel in Sudan. The Chinese embassy in Sudan reminded our citizens to stay safe and prepare for danger. They should notify the embassy of their information and ask for help if they encounter difficulties. After hearing the news that 2 teachers were met difficulties, the Chinese embassy in Sudan responded first time and maintained close coordination with relevant sides of Sudan. The 2 persons have been out of danger and been transferred to a zone of a safe zone. The Chinese embassy and the foreign ministry will continue to follow the developments and protect the safety of our citizens and institutions in Sudan. Next question, please.
Question from AFP. North Korean state media reported today that Chinese President Xi Jinping called Kim Jong-un on April 12th, and that President Xi said that during the call he wanted to push bilateral friendship and cooperation to a higher stage. Can the Foreign Ministry confirm this phone call, and if so, can you offer further details on its content?
朝鲜官方媒体报道，在4月12号的时候，中国国家主席习近平和金正恩进行了通话。习主席在通话中表示，两国要将双边友谊和合作推向新的高度。你能否证实并提供更多细节？
我不了解你提到的有关情况。
I'm not aware of what you mentioned. Next question, please.
发言人您好，人民日报社记者提问。据了解，外交部农荣部长助理
People's Daily, we have learned that Assistant Foreign Minister No Rong will visit Singapore and Cambodia soon. Can you share more with us? From April 19 to 25, Assistant Foreign Minister No Rong will visit Singapore and Cambodia. China-Singapore and China-Cambodia relations are in sound growth. President Xi Jinping jointly announced with Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong to elevate China-Singapore relations to an all-round, high-quality, future-oriented partnership, and jointly announced with Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen to usher in a new era of building a high-quality, high-level, and high-standard China-Cambodia community with a shared future. Assistant Foreign Minister No Rong's visit will focus on comparing notes with Singapore and Cambodia, on following through on the important common understandings between the leaders, deepen strategic trust, expand mutually beneficial cooperation, and work for more outcomes in bilateral relations and cooperation in various areas.
发言人您好，澎湃新闻记者提问。据报道，美国社交平台推特的首席执行官
Twitter CEO Elon Musk said in an interview that he was shocked to find the U.S. government had full access to all users' private direct messages. Do you have any comments? I noted relevant reports. The U.S. has long eavesdropped on the phone calls of leaders of European countries. The recent leak of U.S. military documents also exposes U.S. large-scale surveillance over its allies. For a country that doesn't even respect the privacy of the leaders of its allies, it's hardly surprising that it would monitor the user's private data on social media platforms. Without hard evidence, U.S. has been accusing foreign companies of monitoring and stealing U.S. users' data. What Musk said again proves the belief shared by many online that the U.S. either has done or is doing what it accuses you of. It's increasingly clear that protecting data security is just a pretext the U.S. uses to perpetuate its cyber hegemony. Next question, please.
Next 下一个问题。
谢谢发言人。中新社记者提问。据报道，巴西总统卢拉在访华期间谈及的
China News Service. Brazilian President Lula da Silva shared his view on the Ukraine crisis during his visit to China, saying that the U.S. needs to stop encouraging war and start talking about peace. On April 17th, Coordinator for Strategic Communication John Kirby accused Brazil of parroting Russian and Chinese propaganda without looking at the facts. What's your comment? If I remember correctly, Mr. Kirby said not long ago that any call for a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine would be unacceptable. But already more and more countries are calling for an end to the fighting and working for an early political settlement of the Ukraine crisis. As voices for peace in the international community continue to build, the U.S. needs to meet those growing expectations and play a truly constructive role in bringing about the political settlement of the crisis, rather than continue to go the other way and keep adding fuel to the fire.
下一个问题。
Next question, please.
谢发言人，新华社记者提问。我们注意到昨天秦刚国务委员兼
Xinhua News Service, we have noted that State Consular and Foreign Minister Qin Gang spoke over the phone with Palestinian and Israeli foreign ministers respectively yesterday. Can you share more information with us? Yesterday evening, State Consular and Foreign Minister Qin Gang spoke over the phone with Israeli and Palestinian Minister of Foreign Affairs, with a focus on exchanging views on the current Palestine-Israel situation. Qin Gang noted that China is concerned about the current tensions between the two countries. The urgent task at hand is to manage the situation to prevent conflicts from escalating or even spiraling out of control. Parties should stay cool-headed and exercise restraints and stop making aggressive moves. The fundamental way out is to resume peace talks and implement the two-state solution. It is never too late to do the right thing. China encourages both countries to show political courage and move forward the resumption of peace talks. China stands ready to provide facilitation. President Xi Jinping has put forward the Global Security Initiative, and the idea of common security is what we believe to be the key to resolving the issues. China has no selfish interests. We hope the two sides can coexist peacefully and defend regional peace and stability. Both countries said they value China's influence. They thanked China for support and look forward to China playing a positive role in the conflicts.
Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said at the G7 foreign ministers meeting that China must make its intentions clear on ties with the U.S. He said he expected that China and the U.S. would make progress, but he said, quote, "It does require China to make clear its own intentions." How do you respond to Blinken's remarks?
美国国务卿布林
相互尊重。
China views and grows its relations with the U.S. in accordance with the three principles of mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and win-win cooperation. The root cause of the current tensions in bilateral relations is that the U.S. has formulated and is implementing a misconceived China policy based on misguided perceptions of China. The U.S. needs to stop interfering in China's internal affairs, stop harming China's interests, and stop eroding the political foundation of bilateral ties, while stressing the need to put guardrails. Next question, please.
谢谢欢迎人，共同社提问。
Kyoto News. The New York Attorney General's office have intended to file charges against Chinese officials. Do you have any comments?
China firmly opposes the U.S. smearing China and hyping up the so-called cross-border suppression plan. China has used various means to suppress those who oppose it. The label of cross-border suppression is more suited to the U.S. side. We urge the U.S. to reflect on itself, abandon Cold War mentality, stop its wrongdoing, stop political manipulation, stop smearing at China. Next question, please.
谢谢发言人 NHK 提问，就是我也是关联那个。
NHK, a follow-up. So, do you mean?
社侨事务海外服务站和中国。
The U.S. has made the malicious move to connect the two matters. This is completely political manipulation. As for the so-called overseas police station, we have explained that such a so-called overseas political station does not exist. China stick to the principle of non-interference. We respect judicial sovereignty of all countries. We hope relevant parties will not hype up the issue. Next question, please.
环球时报记者提问：18日，七国集团外长发表联合声明，关切中国扩张核武库、不参与军控与减少风险。
The G7 foreign ministers also expressed their concerns over the expansion of China's nuclear arsenal and called on China to engage in dialogue with the U.S. to reduce strategic risks. Do you have any comments? I need to reiterate that China always follows a nuclear strategy that is defensive in nature, and we follow the policy of no first use of nuclear weapons. We always keep our nuclear strength at the minimum level required by national security. China is the only country among the 5 nuclear weapon states to make such commitments, and China will not threaten any country. This is the most meaningful transparency, and we participate in the mechanism of the 5 nuclear weapons, in the disarmament talks in Geneva, and the first committee of the UN, as well as other multilateral arms control process. G7 foreign ministers, by saying this, are trying to manipulate the narrative and misleading the public. The G7 poses itself as a judge for other countries' strategic security and arms control policy. And in the meantime, they have been undermining the international nuclear arms control and non-proliferation regime and process. They would not win the trust of the international community. The U.S. has the biggest and most advanced nuclear arsenal. It has withdrawn from multiple treaties and organizations, and it is intended to upgrade its nuclear triad and push for the nuclear sharing arrangements. The U.S., the UK have been trying to transfer the nuclear submarine to Australia to expand the risk for nuclear proliferation. This violates the object and principle of the non-proliferation regime. I need to reiterate that as the host, Japan is very hypocritical its position for arms control. It poses itself as a victim of nuclear weapons, yet it sits comfortably under the nuclear umbrella of the U.S. and also tries to pursue nuclear sharing. It also tries to push forward the nuclear contaminated water discharge. We urge G7 to stop discrediting other countries and inciting confrontation, to step up to its obligations in arms control and uphold world peace and security. Next question, please.
A question from AFP. A Chinese supervisor at a dam construction project in Pakistan is currently being held in police protection after workers accused him of blasphemy against Islam. Has the Chinese side been in contact with this individual, and are they working to achieve his release?
一名中国的水坝工程师因为在斋月期间发表亵渎神明的言论，被巴基斯坦的警方所逮捕。那么中方能否提供更多情况？是否和这名人员取得了联系？
中国驻巴基斯坦。
The Chinese embassy in Pakistan is verifying the situation. The Chinese government always asks our citizens overseas to observe local laws and regulations, as well as traditions and customs. If this matter concerns Chinese nationals, the Chinese embassy in Pakistan will provide consular protection and assistance within the scope of our duty.
下一个问题。
Next question, please.
Thank you. Bloomberg News. Taliban-controlled media report that a Chinese company that they refer to as Guqin is planning to invest some $10 billion in the country's lithium reserves. They also say that Chinese representatives have met with the Taliban's Minister of Mines and a Deputy Prime Minister. Can you confirm these reports, and do you have any other details to provide?
一家塔利班控制的媒体表示，一个名为 Gucci 的中国公司计划向阿富汗的锂矿投资100亿美元。他们还表示，中国代表会见了阿富汗的矿业部长和一位副总理，外交部能否证实并提供更多细节？
我不了解你提到的相关。
I'm not aware of the specifics. Next question, please.
请你接着提问。
Thank you. Just two more questions. Taiwan plans to buy as many as 400 U.S.-made land-launched Harpoon missiles that are intended to repel any Chinese invasion. How does the ministry respond to that?
台湾计划向美采购400枚最先进的武器，以防止中方对台发动武力。你对此有何评论？
美台军事联系。
The U.S.'s military ties with and arms sales to the Taiwan region seriously violates the One China principle and the Three China-U.S. joint communique, especially the August 17 communique, undermine China's sovereignty and security interests and harm peace and stability across the strait. We deplore and firmly oppose them. What has happened proves that the root cause of the new round of tensions is the Taiwan authorities' repeated attempt to solicit U.S. support for Taiwan independence, the fact that some in the U.S. intend to use Taiwan to contain China. This is an extremely dangerous trajectory, no different from playing with fire. We urge the U.S. to abide by the One China principle and the Three Joint Communique, stop military ties with and arms sales to the Taiwan region, stop creating factors that could cause tensions in the strait, stop seeking to change the status quo, and avoid going further down the wrong path of colluding with the Taiwan authorities. The Chinese side will take strong and resolute measures to firmly defend our sovereignty and security interests.
下一个问题。
Next question, please.
Thank you. Last question from Bloomberg. The Netherlands spy agency has said that Russia and China pose the greatest threat to the national security of that European nation. It said China poses the greatest threat to Dutch economic security and said that China targets Dutch high-end companies, tech high-end companies, and institutions through corporate takeovers, academic cooperation, as well as illegitimate espionage, insiders, covert investments, and illegal exports. How does the ministry respond to that stance?
荷兰的情报官员表示，中国和俄罗斯已经成为欧洲国家安全的最大威胁。他们还表示，中国已经成为荷兰经济安全的最大威胁。他表示，中国通过种种手段来获取荷兰高端技术公司的技术，通过诸如收购、并购，还有间谍活动、内幕交易、非法出口等等方式来实现这一目的。你对此有何评论？
Could you repeat your question, please? Could you repeat your question, please?
Sure. The Netherlands spy agency has said that Russia and China pose the greatest threats to the national security of the Netherlands. It said China poses the greatest threat to Dutch economic security and said that China targets Dutch high-end tech companies and institutions through corporate takeovers, academic cooperation, as well as illegitimate espionage, insiders, covert investments, and illegal exports. How does the ministry respond to that?
荷兰情报机构称，中国和俄罗斯已经成为该国最大的国家安全威胁，并称中国对荷兰的经济安全构成最大威胁。中国瞄准了荷兰的高端技术 机构和公司，通过诸如学术交流合作，还有并购以及非法出口等等，还有间谍等方式来获取他们的先进技术。你对此有何回应？
中方一贯在相互。
China always develop relations with all countries, including Netherlands, on the basis of mutual respect and mutually beneficial cooperation. Such cooperation is win-win. We urge relevant officials to abandon Cold War mentality, stop hyping up the so-called China threat narrative. Next question, please.
还有其他的问题吗？
Anything else?
没有的话，今天的记者会到此。
That's all for today. Thank you for coming.